Is this your all's first panel back in the convention world?
Us?
Yeah.
No.
No, you've done since conventions have come back. This is my first one. My second one.
Oh, yeah, since the last one was with you, I think. If I'm correct.
You mean like a year and a half ago?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Mark, is this your first one?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and the first thing you do is come out and complain about the chairs?
Well,
We were figuring who was older, so he would
who's
get
older?
precedence.
I have to be.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, we'll talk about that later.
I'm 61.
How much?
Oh, he's older.
61.
No, I'm older.
Baloney.
Yes. I was proved. I'll show you my license when we're done. May 9th. It's a Paul McCartney song.
And I get old and losing my hair many years from now. Well, I'm 64.
Just for the
64.
record, I'm not in charge of what's going on here.
So I
When
do.
I'm 64.
I do deserve having the middle seat.
You'll be old then too.
Which actually, because Jedi was filmed
Where you been?
40 years ago, so you guys were pretty young, almost teenagers, right?
I was 26.
You were 26, and you were.
I was 23. Yeah.
And there you guys were.
I was
so why don't we start there? Return
It's
of the
good
Jedi.
to see you.
What's
Kevin.
that?
It's good to see you up here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Dodson.
You're
It's very
welcome.
nice of you to say that.
Kind of like the dinosaur show.
It's kind of thanks.
Kind of how does that feel?
I'm like a dinosaur.
Kind of.
I have a little more
A
bass
male
than she does,
version.
I think. But so, Mark, let's start with you. You did you've done a lot of films, but one of your first ones, of course, was Salacious Crumb. How'd that come about, and what's
Yeah.
it like to be a Kowakian monkey lizard?
It's wonderful to be a Kowakian monkey lizard. They get away with a lot, and they're fun. And but I ended up I wanted to be I wanted to direct or produce, and so early in school I took all the classes I could, you know, whether it was drama or choir or everything. I knew I wanted to be a director producer in film, TV. So right out of high school, I grew up in St. Louis. I went straight from St. Louis the year I graduated that summer to LA, and I was like, I'm gonna get in this business, and I'm gonna start at the bottom and work my way up. That was, my family wasn't gonna be able to send me to college, and my dad was like, well, you just have to work your way through, and I thought, well, then why not just go get a job at a studio, even if it's sweeping the floors, and I'll be there.
Which
and
literally, that's what you were doing.
Literally,
you
that's
literally
what I
started at the laborers.
Literally, yeah. So I met people with Lucasfilm, and they were like, well, right now they're getting ready to build Skywalker Ranch, and they're looking for laborers and carpenters. And I said, well, I'll labor. I could do that. And when something opens up, you guys can bring me over into production and make me a production assistant. And they said, you would do that? And I said, yeah. So I moved up to Marin County, started out as a laborer.
And not just anything. I mean, you built Skywalker Ranch.
Yeah, I ended up building Skywalker Ranch.
Top that, Steve Constantino.
Yeah, that was yeah. So why?
So Lucas Valley, which was there before Lucas ever showed
Lucas
up.
Valley was already,
That's
because that
funny.
was a dairy,
Yeah.
a big dairy farm. Lucas Valley is where Lucas Skywalker Ranch is.
The original Lucas was a guy from like the 1850s. He was a 49er. And when
Was he a 49er?
When he struck gold, he got that whole area. He bought that whole area and built
Okay.
the road. So Lucas Valley Road, which is where Skywalker Ranch is,
Yes.
it's just a coincidence.
Yes, it is just a coincidence.
I like your
And-
shirt, by the way.
So, but anyway, so then it got around. I always did voices since I was a kid. I loved character stuff. Big Paul Frees fan, which is the voice of the
The haunted
Welcome,
house.
foolish mortals, to the haunted mansion. Yes. So it got around that I did voices, and Ben Burt said, why don't you come on over and try out for some stuff? I went over.
Ben Burt's the sound designer, of course,
Ben
for the
Burt's
Star Wars
the sound
films.
designer, yeah, the sound Jedi. And I actually went in the studio that I had labored to build. And I was trying out for Admiral Akbar. I got really nervous. He handed me the script, and I was shaking. And I couldn't read it. And I went, oh, my God. And he's like, what's wrong? I said, I'm so nervous. I'm shaking so bad, I can't read this. And there was no place to put the copy. So he said, oh, just relax, take your time. I said, okay, well, I'm going to get rid of these nerves. Do what you want. So I walked away and started going, and I was shaking the paper. And I came back over, and I said, okay, I'm ready. And Ben came from behind he had a podium there. And he said, give me the script. And I really thought I'd offended him. Like for a second, I really thought that was my one and only chance, and I just blew it. And he turned around and said, you know what you just did over there? I said, what, the cackling and laughing? And he said, yeah, I've got a creature that'll be perfect forget Admiral Akbar. Let's just do a bunch of that. And I ended up, that was it. And it was Salacious Crumb. And I cackled and laughed, and he had me, just make stuff up, just gibberish, just go with it, And all the here's that, but just, and we probably did 20, it was about 20 minutes or a half hour of stuff, and then he found a good 30 seconds that he put in the movie, and it was Salacious Crumb. And the rest really is history. It really is. Yeah.
And there's a couple of things I want to talk about that, but first I want to move on to Steve here. You have a similar story how you got into Return of the Jedi. Not similar, but a strange story that's not the direct actor's route to get on the stage.
Yeah. Well, I had a band with Corey D. Williams, and I met him through my sensei, who was raving about how he played bass. And as soon as we sat down, it was magic. To this day, he lives in Atlanta now, but we do it when he's in town or when I'm there. And we had a studio when he lived with his dad, Billy D. And Billy came in one April day and said, do you want to go to Yuma to Corey to stand in because they look so much alike? And Corey's kind of adamant. He knows how hard it is to work on sets. He's been on sets like Bingo Long and all the other movies that Billy had done. And he goes, I don't know, we're kind of at this creative peak right now. And Billy says, you're coming to, bring the guitar, you guys continue to write on the set. So I go out there, and after 3 days in, long days in the Yuma, in the desert, 45-minute drive into the desert, I said to the producer one night, we had dinner with Billy and the producer, and I said, I'll work for free, I'll wrangle scorpions, whatever you guys need.
Tell them about that. That's not a joke.
That's not a joke.
They had
Every
a person
day
that was wrangling
early in the morning under the set because all the dark spaces. It was a big set, the facade, the Sarlacc pit and the katana. And they would wrangle buckets of scorpions and snakes.
Like big ones?
Yeah. Well, the scorpions are pretty elusive. The small little
Yeah, because
things.
the smaller they get, the more dangerous they are.
Lethal,
right.
yeah. And so he said, okay, come in tomorrow. And I go in, he makes me the Gamorrean Guard. And at that point, Corey had been doing some stunts, and he made him Klaatu. And they put some footsteps on the barge there, and I followed them. They put the mask on, a blow dryer in my mouth to help me breathe. It's archaic times, 82, I guess, compared to now. And Billy D had taken a picture of Corey and I with the mask off, which was put into the archives until 10 years ago. And we're still musicians, so I'm not an aspiring actor. I produce some movies, and I love movies. But when the picture came out, Corey said, they want us to go out and tell the story. So that's what happened. We've been doing it for 10 years ever since. It's a kismet thing, and I can't believe I'm a toy. A Disney toy right now. It's just.
And you're a magnet. You're a T-shirt. You got a guy over here with a T-shirt. The guy
I'm
next
a brand.
To me,
I'm a
the guy
brand.
next to me in the dealer's room.
Yes,
he's got these cutouts of you.
And
he's got Salacious Crumb as well.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh
He's
yeah,
right
you
next to
got to
me.
see the cutouts. It's pretty cool.
Well, I gotta see him.
'Cause
You
you're gonna
should.
want one.
I should be.
You want to take one home?
Well, you guys show me where they are. I don't know.
They're next to me I can't start advertising.
Tell us where you are.
I'm in the main dealer's room at Norse Legion.
Okay.
So
can I say, when I first moved to Marin County,
Yeah.
when I came from the East Coast,
You moved to Marin?
yeah, I
didn't know you
moved
lived
to Lake Merritt, Oakland, then I lived in San Anselmo.
I know
Oh,
San
San
Anselmo.
Yeah, and
Well,
then
that's where George's house was up on the
right.
hill. In
My
San
friend was
Anselmo.
his carpenter. I had nothing to do with Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
My friend was actually his carpenter, so that was a funny story.
Yeah.
And I didn't get with Lucas till I moved to LA, but he would tell me, "Oh, I'm doing Lucas's house."
Right.
He was building out their Skywalker as well.
Yeah. Who
That's
was
funny.
it?
Oh God,
You remember his
it's been
name?
so long. I'll look.
You'll think of it.
Yeah,
Because I probably know him.
But I had no
So
idea.
I ended up a carpenter after I labored. Then they were like, well, we still know nothing in production. Come on out to the ranch. Because I started in the Kerner Company at ILM on Kerner Boulevard. They called it the Kerner Company. And even the people that lived in the area didn't know that was Lucasfilm. That was ILM's backlot. And they made it, so then they were building sound stages and a beautiful movie theater for screening. And then Ben Burt's facilities.
That giant
And that
barn
was
that's
all
out
to
there.
be temporary while we built the ranch. So then they took me and said, okay, now we're going to put you on the ranch, and now you're going to be a apprentice carpenter.
But
So-
after Salacious Crumb, that wasn't your last foray into Star Wars voice work.
No.
You are, and just now, this is relevant to now, the Ewok stories, the Ewok movies are on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So
Isn't
Teak,
that funny?
So Teak, your character there,
I'm Teak.
who is a really weird character, but
It is really weird.
but how does that voice go?
I don't really remember. I need to watch it.
Oh, really? We need
Well,
to get somebody to watch. We need to get a recording of
I
it
would
so you
have
can
to hear it and see
You'd
it
have to
again.
hear it because it's more of a high pitched.
It's a higher pitch, and I think they probably pitched it up a little bit. But
Okay.
I know it was again, it was kind of a that kind of thing. But he's fast. And right, isn't it kind of like that?
He's really quick, isn't he? Has anybody seen the
Yeah,
New
he
York
goes
movies?
so quick
I
you
watched
can't
it with
see him. When he runs, he like just a flash going by. And the funny thing is, he drives Wilford Brimley crazy, who I love. Wilford Brimley.
You guys have the same mustache.
I was gonna say, yeah, I got mine from him. No, but we do.
Did
And I
you
love
really?
Wilford Brimley. And you guys, Wilford Brimley, he is the most cantankerous bastard. And are there any kids? I apologize. But it's funny because, I mean, a lovable, like he likes to be cantankerous, you know? And, those kids are in that movie, and he has a worse mouth than me. And you know me.
Yeah, I
You know
do.
how I can. It's all in fun, but he makes a sailor blush, right? Yeah. And he kept doing that in front of those kids on set because even though I did the voice to picture, I was at they shot a lot of the insert shots and things on the soundstage over at the Kerner Company at ILM. And I was over there when they were doing it, and he just would not stop cussing. And they'd keep saying,
Which is ironic because he's Mr. For the younger people in the audience, Wilford Brimley is Mr. Wholesome, diabetes commercials,
Diabetes.
Quaker,
Yes,
the right thing, the
diabetes,
tasty thing to do, and the right way to do it, or something like
yeah.
that.
Well, yeah, it was the diabetes. Do you like my butt plays?
Is that your phone?
That's my. Yeah. Somebody's calling.
That's your ringer?
Yeah.
What century do you live in?
It helps me relax.
He's a Renaissance man. Let me
That way
tell you.
when my phone rings, I don't get excited. I relax. Hi. Instead of, what do you want? What was I saying? So Wilford, yeah, and they kept saying, Wilford, there's kids. I don't goddamn it. But yeah, Wilford, yeah, and he'd cuss even more the more they'd say, in front of the kids. It was really funny.
Mason Sindel, they were like
Yes,
9 and 3.
yes. They were little bitty. And we were all like laughing, and it was just fun to work with, to be around Wilford. Yeah, Wilford did the blood check your blood sugar and check it off, and right, he's that kind of, I have diabetes, but yeah, he's a trip.
So you
He just
haven't
recently
seen the
passed
Ewok
on.
movies in a long. He just recently did, about the past year
Yeah,
or so.
like last year.
So you haven't seen the Ewok movies in a while.
I haven't seen them since Thanksgiving, right around Thanksgiving, the year we did it.
Okay.
No.
That's
That's a long time
they're
ago.
They're now available to watch on streaming at any time on
Yeah.
Disney Plus.
Yeah, the Ewoks Battle for Endor is the one that I'm in, and then there's the Caravan. something.
Caravan. Does anyone know the Caravan of Courage?
Caravan
It is
of
Caravan of Courage. Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
So okay, now you tell us a funny story.
About Jedi?
Do you have a funny story about Jedi?
Well, Kenny Baker was quite the comedian. He was like a python, you know.
Kenny Baker's hilarious.
He would hang out with us, and I have pictures with him with a shirt off, sunbathing, him and I sitting there, and I'm wearing the Blue Harvest. But he'd come in, and he said he had a Rolls Royce, and in England, of course, it's on the other side. And we'd get out. He would do this on purpose. He'd get out, and he would hide, so the valet would look for him. Somebody just drove up, right? Where is he? And he would and mess with them. Stuff like that was crazy.
Do you know who bought that Rolls Royce?
Who?
David Prowse.
Get out.
And when he bought the Rolls Royce from Kenny Baker, and then when he bought it, he went to go open the trunk, and he opens the trunk, and a chain comes down. He's like, "What the heck?" The chain is so Kenny Baker can grab it and shut the trunk.
What?
That's fun.
That's amazing.
And all the doors had little long ropes coming out of it, so he could just reach out and grab it. Because he's what, 3 feet 2 inches?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was pretty, buff.
He was buff for his little
buff. He was a
side.
strong guy.
I've met him a bunch of times. He's a great guy. You must have met
Yeah,
Kenny.
I met Kenny, but I like your story about Kenny.
Oh Oh, the one in Germany?
Please tell it.
I cannot tell that.
You can't, can you?
Cannot
Why is
tell
it that bad?
I will tell each and every one of you that story, but I cannot say it on you. I can't. It's too. It's
You
hilarious.
could edit.
Have I heard
mean, we
this?
can
Is
censor
it the funniest Star Wars story you've ever
It's
heard?
very funny, and you could censor it. You don't have to use the language.
All right.
You got to hear it.
I
This is a
wanna
great
know. I
Kenny
wanna hear
Baker.
it.
So
This is typical Kenny Baker, though. Do it.
Be discreet.
Mike Havens, I apologize. So we were in Germany in 2013 for Celebration Essen. I'll be real quick with the story. And I was with Paul Blake and Femi Taylor. We're hanging out at the bar, drinking. And Kenny had been at the last couple celebrations. The very last one prior to this, in 2012 or whatever, he actually rushed out because he had oxygen problems. And we're like, Kenny's 80. He's not doing well. Right. So he shows up at this convention at Celebration Essen in 2013. He's in a wheelchair, and he comes up to the bar, and he has a beer in his hand. And he's under his own power, and there's no entourage. It's just him. It's like, well, how bad can he be? He's in a bar with a beer in his hand. And so Paul Blake looks down and he goes, Kenny, you look great. It's great to see you here. You look so great. And Kenny goes, great. I'm in a bloody wheelchair, Paul. That is so funny. Now, he told that story. That was his punchline. I'm not making it up. But it was so funny that he said that. He said, how do you look great?
I'm in a wheelchair.
He didn't say bloody. Yeah, I put that in myself. Okay, now tell us a funny story.
I love him in Time Bandits, by the way.
I don't know.
Time Bandits.
That's
He was great in Time
Great
Bandits.
Time Bandits. The other Stuart Freeborn was a fascinating guy. He wasn't funny, but he was fascinating.
You have that great picture of you.
Yeah.
Stuart Freeborn is the designer of Yoda, who.
Dr. Strangelove, we can go way back with him.
But the thing with Yoda is that if you look at Stuart Freeborn, guys can look him on your phone. He looks just like Yoda. He sat there, looked at a mirror of himself, and designed the.
Yeah. Well, we got down to the eyes. He said it took many prototype sizes, dimensions, and it was a long process.
The eyes.
The eyes
are Albert Einstein.
I told you that.
The lip is Albert Einstein. You told me that?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Star
Stuart
Wars.
told me
I'm
that.
hosting the Star Wars trivia contest here tomorrow. I know everything about Star Wars. Go ahead, ask me a Star
But
Wars
Stuart
question.
told me from the horse's mouth.
But that is a
Stuart
fact.
told you from the. Okay. fair
Stuart
enough.
said we came down to the eyes, and they wanted compassion and intelligence in those eyes. Who could we get? That's famous. Einstein.
Well, you notice Yoda has lines in his lips.
Yeah.
To mimic Einstein's mustache.
But it does look. Stuart has the same eyes as Einstein, I must say.
Yeah.
Oh,
He told-
yeah. No, that's a fact. They were Einstein's eyes on Yoda.
He told a story where he was in a Jeep and it rolled, and he woke up at a American Indian camp, and he was out for 3 days. He broke his back.
Who's this?
Stuart Freeborn, and he broke his back.
I didn't know that.
And he said when they finally got him to the hospital, they said if anyone else would have lifted you, you would have been dead. But somehow the American Indian knew how to pick him up and revive him. They saved his life.
What did they revive him with?
I don't know. The witch,
I don't know,
the
yeah, I don't-
shaman.
maybe it's a public. Yeah.
But just to have a broken back and pick him up and move him.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Do you know who bought that Jeep from Stuart Freeborn?
Come on.
David Prowse. No, I'm just kidding. We are going to be opening up to the audience. If you guys, anybody have any questions? I'll ask a little bit later. You guys think about it for a couple minutes. We're going to have mics on either side. But so before they go to the questions, I still have a couple questions. Mark, outside of Star Wars or any movie you've worked on, what's your favorite film?
Of all time.
Of all time. If you want, you don't say your favorite. How about an honorable mention? It's a hard question sometimes.
So really, honestly, well, you got to do different genres. It's really not fair.
Thank you.
You know.
Okay.
So like, I love North by Northwest, Hitchcock.
Okay.
I love I love that one. I love Hitchcock. City Lights, Chaplin.
That's an old one.
I love City Lights.
What is that? It's from 1929?
Early 20s.
What's that movie that we like from
It's
Chapman?
still
What's the one where he's the dictator?
The Great Dictator.
The Great Dictator.
The
Okay,
Great
right,
Dictator.
right.
Another great one. My favorite Western of all times is Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch. If you haven't seen it, you got to see Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch. It's epic. It's incredible. William Holden, and I mean, it's freaking Strother Martin. What we have here, all the.
Oh, was he there?
Yeah, from
Luke.
but really, my all-time favorite movie, I still try to watch it once a year, is Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins. Is that why you're so mad at me about the Dick Van Dyke thing? we were at a George Lucas was being inducted into the Disney Legends.
That's right.
And we were there for that, and the seat right behind George Lucas was free on the second row.
That's
so
right.
I was with Mark. This is like what, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
And we go in there, and there's this little old man, but his head is turned. And he's sitting there. I was like, well, I'll just ask him if those two seats next to him are
Yes.
available. So I lean in and I go, excuse me, are these seats available? He turns around, it's Dick Van Dyke.
It's Dick Van Dyke.
And I turned to him, I says, it's Dick Van freaking Dyke. And you're like, it's Dick Van freaking Dyke. So we sat down for this 2.5-hour Disney show.
Yeah.
I sat there sitting next to Dick Van
Right
Dyke,
next to him.
and he didn't.
Right. But the way I remember it was I sat right next to Dick Van Dyke, and he didn't.
But I have a picture to prove it. And there was another thing. I handed you my picture, and I said, can you take a picture of me and Dick Van Dyke quietly so he doesn't know? So it's nice. It's nice.
Right.
He refused to do it.
Well,
I offered you $100.
I was scared. I was scared because they didn't want you taking pictures in there, and I was like, I was scared. Quite honestly.
Have you ever met Dick Van Dyke?
I met Julie Andrews. I have a Julie Andrews story.
Okay,
Pretty good.
I have a Julie Andrews too.
Okay, Stephen will tell his
Let
to
Steve
Julie
do
Andrews,
his.
and then you can tell yours.
Yeah.
My friends live in East Hampton. I'd go there every summer, and the Sag Harbor's there, and she has a theater there with her ex-husband.
Out on Long Island?
Yeah.
Okay.
She has a theater.
East Hampton is on Long Island,
Well,
New
she's
York.
with Blake Edwards at this point, but, married to him.
Right.
But her ex-husband was a stage designer with her. But when they had a kid, the ex-husband and her wrote these books, Seminian something, I have the book, for the kids so they can stay together and feel like a family. They don't want to mess them up with divorce. And so they wrote a book together, the kids and the ex-husband and her. And she told the story. And my friend was shooting the whole event. And his son was there, little Morgan. But he's like a little bull, this kid, He's always in something. So I go up to the table and I said, first of all, would you adopt me? Because I want to be part of the family. And she's going to sign a book. As he said, this kid butt slams me with his head. I fall right into her over the table.
Into Julie Andrews.
Yeah. And then I meet
into
her
Mary Poppins.
I meet her in Westwood years later with Blake Edwards at a restaurant. And she goes, aren't you the guy that jumped on top of me that time? Unbelievable.
That's all right, so
That is funny.
you have a Julie Andrews story. Let's make a bet. If it's better than Julie Andrews, you give everybody a free autograph.
I'm
just
gonna
kidding.
make this suck. This story's gonna suck. If that's the deal. Sorry, everybody.
Is it your phone again?
Yes.
It sounds like a silver.
We're going to commercial, ladies and gentlemen.
No, it just stopped.
During the second year of the Civil War, the American, it just sounds like something like
Right.
a Ken Burns.
No, but here's the kind of stuff I hear. Hold this.
Oh, we're going to have a little audio show, with Mark Dodson here at ICCC.
Because this is what I wake up to.
Okay, just so you know, we have 17 minutes left.
Just so you know, it kind of. So this.
Do you have another story about Maria von Trapp?
Here we go.
Couldn't be.
I love.
Chaplin.
That's Charlie Chaplin right there. Yeah.
City Lights. Yeah, that's what I wake up to. It's a good way to wake up.
Okay.
Okay.
I have
So,
Marconi.
Julie Andrews. Oh, now I never know how to shut this thing off. Okay, watch this.
Give me the phone. Give me the phone.
I think you just do Facebook. You got Facebook down today?
Ba-da-da-da-dun-dun-dun. Okay.
Microphone.
Julie Andrews. So
Microphone.
You want the mic?
Oh yeah, now I can yell. I worked for Dick Clark. I was a radio jock. He owned the Unistar Radio Network, and we had every format, and I was on the adult contemporary format. And it was syndicated, and it was out of Hollywood, and so every day I'd go to work down there, and there was Music of Your Life was one of the formats, and Music of Your Life, they would bring in artists to talk. Music of Your Life was stuff from the 50s and 60s. There was a lot of show tunes and movie tunes and Broadway and, Music of Your Life. So they would have people come in to interview the artists, the old artists. And they were all, you'd run into them in the hallway as I was there doing my show, and all these different studios were lined up, and we'd run out to get our coffee, when you play the song, and then you run out grab your coffee, maybe have a few hits on your cigarette, and then run back in. And before the music, hopefully you got there before it was your time for your break. One day, I didn't know, you never knew who was going to be there because I wasn't on Music of Your Life. So one day I walk out, and my favorite movie of all times is Mary Poppins, and I love Julie Andrews, Sound of Music, all the stuff she ever did. I'm on the air. I want to run for coffee. I run out. I go in. I pour my coffee. I come back around the corner, and I'm going pretty fast. And I come back around the corner and almost run into Julie Andrews with my coffee. And I literally came around the corner and went. And I'm standing there looking, and I went, Mary Poppins?
Oh.
Honest to God. And she went, why, yes, I suppose so. And I said, I love you. And she went, well, thank you. And I said, I got to go back on the air. And I ran in, and I ran into the studio. I almost fainted. It was the first time and the only time in my life that I was ever starstruck.
Did you actually?
So I got so shaky, and I got back in. I did my break real quick, and I'm standing there, and I'm like shaking, like, oh my God, that was Mary Poppins. And everybody knew the kind of guy I was, right? So one of the other jocks that witnessed it, when he comes to the studio, and he looks at me, he goes, Mary Poppins? And I was like, I love her. I love Mary Poppins. He's like, yeah, but really? Like, you're starstruck. I was like, oh man, I am. So that's my Julie Andrews story. Yes.
Oh, there you go.
I almost ran into her, literally.
So both of you bumped into.
We both, threw ourselves
You
at
both
her.
have stories of bumping
We have
into
6
Julie.
degrees.
Isn't that
Julie
weird?
Andrews.
I worked for Dick Clark too at one
Good thing.
point.
You did?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I did some of the music they would bring from Europe for Rack, his son.
Oh,
Rack
okay.
Rack Clark.
Yeah.
And Larry Klein.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, on Olive and Fairbank.
He used to have a great party every year for the jocks only, because that's how Dick Clark started out, was as a radio jock. So he really loved his radio DJs. He would have a party at his Malibu home for just the DJs, and we would all go. And it was beautiful. I mean, he treated us really, really well. The coolest thing about Dick Clark's home is he's got these original, he's got the most beautiful art. But by, like, John Lennon, like where we went, we're like, oh, Lord, you've all seen the picture with the flowers that Lennon did, and Dick, we're like, Dick, is that the original? He's like, yes, it is. Dick Clark had that original. So those artists, those musicians and people that were also artists would give things like that to Dick, and he had them all over his home. It was just incredible. Beautiful home, right on the beach. And there was always, there's a classic big grand piano, and the gentleman playing the grand piano. And so and he was really good. And so I went up and would say, hey, that's really beautiful music. And he's like, yeah, thank you. And, we making small talk, and then we were like, he's so nice. Mr. Clark is so nice. And he said, well, he's been very good to me. He said, I'm not just his piano player, I'm his gardener. His gardener was also in the evening would play the piano for Dick Clark and his wife. Yeah.
Stephen, did you get to comment on what your favorite movie was?
That sounds to be genres as well. I mean,
It would be.
I love.
How about an honorable mention?
I love Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh yeah.
One of my David Lean. I go back to Eisenstein. I mean, to Tarkowski. I love all that. But then,
Do you have a favorite Western?
yeah, Wild Bunch is definitely Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I love the first 7 minutes. They don't have any dialogue. It's genius,
I think The Searchers is the best Western.
Sergio.
Personally. The Searchers.
And then I love
John Wayne.
Unforgiven later on.
Unforgiven is great. But I also want to remind you guys, does anybody have any questions in the audience? Because we're starting to run a little low, and I want to make sure we get somebody. You're all cowards, aren't you? Look at them all. You know what? I'll give you a patch. I'll give you a Star Wars Skywalker Ranch police patch if you ask a question. I'll leave it right there. Look, nobody. Oh, there we go. Oh, we got somebody brave enough. Here we go.
So, you guys have all these great celebrity stories. Who's been your favorite person to work with from just like a professional standpoint? Who's been that most professional person with you guys to have worked with?
In film or music?
Either or.
It is.
It's hard because every project's so different, and then you.
I think it's funny because Mark can't say Dick Van Dyke.
No, I can't. No.
I gotta give.
Have you ever even spoken to him?
Well, yeah, I did that day.
Yeah, you did know that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't directly work with Billy D, but I got to give it to Billy. He's changed my life. Billy and Corey, So Billy D. Williams, big influence, and I love those guys. I didn't directly work with them.
That's a quasi answer. What's the weirdest thing you've ever signed? And be careful for children. What's the weirdest thing you've ever signed at a convention? It's both of you.
Oh, you were there, I think.
Which one? Keep it clean.
Well, it's the weirdest thing. Well, up here on a woman, where she.
Oh, I remember. Okay, right.
You remember that?
Right.
I was like, what the?
They get him.
I don't know.
They get him tattooed.
And then she was going to have it tatted, so I guess I'm on
That
her
is
breast.
commitment.
Well, I couldn't say no as Salacious Crumb and
Right.
the Gremlins. I'm like, well, of course we would love to sign that. I'm sorry, you guys, but
Do you
that
have a
was
weird thing you've signed?
Well, in movie stuff, not really. Well, Corey and I signed the biggest poster I've ever seen. It took up a whole table.
And was it signed by like?
Yeah, like crazy. But in rock and roll,
Oh, I saw that one. It's like literally. It's as big
the
as
biggest
these two
thing I ever
TVs.
saw.
Yeah, it's huge.
And then one celebration, a guy had this box, and he would wind it, the poster would come out. You sign it, you go right back in. Another one. He had this apparatus that I said, I want one. You had such problems with posters and rolling them up, and
What, it was some kind of
yeah,
poster
he made
cannon?
it was like a steampunk kind of thing. It was unbelievable.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? I have more than one patch to give out. You have to go to the mic for the. So we got to have one more question. You can have one.
I got a question for Mark.
That's cool.
It's the Salacious Crumb character. Now, was that name given after the movie had come out, or what was the name of Salacious Crumb during the filming of Return of the Jedi?
Was it? Do you remember?
I remember, but you can tell.
Well, yeah, but was it Phil Tippett?
It was Tim Rose.
Well, Tim Rose told me the story, but I think it was. So Tim Rose is the puppeteer.
Oh, it was. Tim was telling the story, and it was Phil who did it.
I think it
Phil
was
Tippett
Phil.
is the creature developer the senior developer artist for Lucasfilm at the time.
Yeah, yeah. So he was over there in England, and they were shooting, and they were, they were like, we got to come up with a name for this creature. He didn't have a name while they were shooting at first, and they went out to the pub, as they often did, after shooting, and had quite a few pints, from what I hear, and they were leaving. And they were still, they'd been talking about it that evening while drinking. We got to come up with this name. We got to come up with a name. And as they were leaving, Phil Tippett's shoelace was untied, and he said, "Just a minute," and he was buzzed, and so he's like slurring a little. He says, "Just a minute, my shoelaces. I need to tie my shoelaces." And I guess Tim, or this was Tippett, says it. These guys are like, "What'd you say?" And he said, "My shoelaces are untied. I need to tie my shoelaces." He said, No, Salacious. He's like, shoelaces. He said, no, Salacious. Salacious. That should be the puppet's name, Salacious. And they were like, oh, that would be a great name. And then I don't know where they pulled Crumb out of, but they were like,
It's Salacious B. Crumb.
and then it's Salacious B. Crumb.
Salacious Bread Crumb.
Crumb. That's his name. So his name is Salacious Breadcrumb. And but that is honestly and that's what the story that I've been told, and I certainly believe it. And Tim was there, so.
Yeah, they wouldn't make it up.
No, they wouldn't make it up. So that's how he got his name. He didn't have a name. When I worked on it, Ben didn't know his name at that time because he just said he's like this creature. He didn't show me. He said he's kind of part rat, part bird, part monkey, part lizard. I was like, okay. But he didn't have a name. And then when we screened the movie, he did know because Ben came up Ben Burt came up to me after we screened it in San Francisco, cast and crew, George and everybody, and we were then having a meal. It was in the afternoon, and Ben came up and said, "Do you know who you were?" And I said, "Yeah, I was that little guy with Jabba." And he said, "You're right." And he said, his name's Salacious Crumb. So then Ben did know, because he was the first one to tell me, his name is Salacious Crumb. And he said, and the guys that made him are here. Do you want to meet them? I want to introduce you to them. And I said, well, yeah, of course. And that was Tony McVeigh and Chris Wayless, which is Tony McVeigh sculpted Salacious Crumb, and Chris made him out of the rubber and the painting him and all that kind of stuff. And which is how I ended up getting Gremlins. Because
So
those
you
guys
don't
went to
know-
make the Gremlins.
You're also so you're Teak, Salacious Crumb, and the Gremlins, and the
Teeks.
voice of Wild Turkey.
I'm the voice of Wild Turkey Whiskey. Real
know that.
Kentucky bourbon. Yeah. Wild Turkey. You want me to do it? Yeah. Real Kentucky bourbon. Sorry, Tennessee. Sorry, Jack. Real Kentucky bourbon. Nothing else comes close. Give them the bird.
Do you get a check for that doing that now?
I do.
'Cause
Well,
we're
now
actually-
right now I don't.
We're
When it runs, I
live.
do.
We're live on YouTube right
Oh,
now.
are we really?
Yeah, like thousands of people are
Oh
watching
my
us
gosh.
all over
Well,
the
yeah.
world.
Hey, Wild Turkey, send me a check.
And Remington.
And Remington Rifles and Ammunition.
Do we have any more
Only
questions from the audience?
Remington.
One more, two more. Do you have a question for Mark Dodson?
Why? Ask him everything so far.
Outside of Star Wars, not connected to Star Wars at all, who's the most famous person you've ever met? So not George or Billy.
In New York, I've seen everybody at Studio 54 one night, you know.
All right, name drop.
Liz Taylor, you
That's
know.
pretty big.
and-
But you've met Frank, haven't you?
no,
You never met. Oh,
but I met his lawyer. They used to play
that
cards.
doesn't count, Steve.
Well, Frank used to play at cards. I was doing electrical then, and I put lights in this room, and he goes, Frank comes every Thursday, plays cards here. And this guy had Sammy Davis Jr.'s boots, and so he worked for Reprise, and he changed a lot of laws for
You're
Frank.
still going on about the lawyer,
Yeah.
even though I
But
pretty much just
I met
admonished.
Sean Connery was pretty. That was pretty. Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood.
I go to the Congo Room, which is a Latin place. There's one in LA Live now, downtown Los Angeles, but they had one on Wilshire, and Paul Rodriguez had bought it, and he and Clint did a movie. Remember that movie? I forget the name of the movie. Clint and Paul Rodriguez as detectives. Clint Eastwood.
He's a detective? Dirty Harry?
Dirty Harry.
No, what's the one he did with Paul Rodriguez?
What year? Give me a year.
Paul was the detective in it. Helps him.
Can you give me a
I
year?
can't think of
Man,
the
it
year.
had to be Dirty Harry.
No.
Dirty Harry.
He said the other guy was the detective.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
Paul Rodriguez was a detective, a comedian. Anyway, he owned this club called Congo Room. And there's a drummer called Billy Cobham, and if you know music,
That's our timer, by the way. So
Okay.
you want to keep it.
he did an album Spectrum, which is a classic drum album, and many drum albums are not really musical, you know, but this is a classic. Tommy Bolin's on it, Jeff Beck, great guitar player. So he's doing this Spectrum album in its entirety for the first time in 30 years. So, you know, all these musicians going, and Clint walks in, sits next to me. I said, God, you are a music lover, are you? He goes, yeah, I know. I'm Billy from Marin County, from Larkspur. We've been friends. And so I had so much as an actor, leading man, director, musician, and then to love music that way. And he goes, hey, kid, can I buy you a Heineken? So I sat there and drank a Heineken with Clint and Paul Rodriguez.
There you go.
Pretty
so
cool.
outside of Star Wars, because you and I have both met George Lucas. You've met him.
Well,
I have.
I
But so you
went on
got to have
ski trips with him.
outside of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Can you get somebody bigger than Clint Eastwood? Actually, there probably isn't, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard. But no, when you asked, I was thinking of, for me, I went to audition for a picture called Survivors, and it was for the voice of a parrot. And they're like, just go over there. They're doing stuff right now. Just go over there. So I went over. Well, it turned out, and I'm a big, you know my age now, so I'm a big Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau fan. I love Matthau and Lemmon to this day, man.
Fortune cookie.
Look at him. Look at him.
Freaking awesome.
None of them know who Walter Matthau
Walter
is.
Matthau, Jack Lemmon.
Show of hands. Who knows Walter?
Please.
You guys
Real,
know who
real.
Walter. Okay.
Please.
Fortune cookie to this day is one of my favorites.
Yeah. It was just on not too long ago. I watched it. It was just on, I don't know, whatever.
Odd
But-
Couple, by the way.
And Odd Couple, yes. Felix, you're driving me crazy. Yeah. So, so I walk into this studio, and I didn't know who was involved, but it was Walter Matthau was on this picture. And I walk in, and they're like, just go sit down until they get done. And from behind, and I hear his voice. He's redoing some lines to picture a ADR session. And I sit down, and I'm like, oh, my God, that's Walter Matthau. I'm watching while I'm sitting in the studio with Walter Matthau now. And this was in my early days. And the best thing about it was, you guys know Walter Matthau. Well, that's him. That's just him.
Yeah,
He doesn't act. He just bees Walter Matthau, right? So he gets all done with his lines, and they're like, okay, Walter, that was great. We're done. We don't need anything else, you know. And he turns around, and then I see him because he's looking at picture, and I'm behind him. And there he is. And he walks over and gets his frumpy little hat like Walter Matthau would have, picks it up, puts it on his head, and he turns around and says, does anybody know where I can get a good deli sandwich around here? And I was like, good Lord. And they're like, yeah, Walter, just right down. You can walk. It's just right down the road. Thank you. It was a great time. Thanks. And he walks out the door. And I'm like, good Lord, Walter Matthau is now walking down the sidewalk just as Walter, just that looks like an old hound dog, right? There's that hound dog with the hat on going down to get a deli sandwich. And I was just, to me, that was the biggest that I ever. And I, of course, said, Mr. Matthau, how are you? And, you know, and I
Did you
said
bump
hi.
into him like a Julie
No,
Andrews
I didn't
story,
bump into
or-
him at all. No. But that was a one where I had to call my mom and say, I was in the studio with Walter Matthau.
Well, as difficult as the last year's been, and I want to thank both of you for coming
a
out,
year.
because most of us have not done a con at all. And this is, and I said this in our first panel today, ICC is the only convention that did not reschedule or cancel. This was our date a year and a half ago.
Okay.
November
Oh, wow.
or December of
Wow.
2019. We
Yeah.
have not changed because we are the greatest convention on the planet. And but I want to thank both of you for braving whatever. It's just difficult to come out here with the mask flying and all that stuff. So I want
is.
to thank both of you for coming. And remember that both these gentlemen will be in the autograph hall for the remainder of the weekend.
Yes.
And probably in the bar tonight.
Yes.
I'm sure.
Most
Yeah,
likely.
Yeah, that will,
We're going
most
to go
likely.
over to Printer's Alley, I believe.
We're downtown, yeah, tonight.
We're going to Memphis.
We're going to Memphis.
Him and I are going to Memphis on Tuesday. You want to come?
I love Memphis. Oh, man, I love Memphis.
But we'll have that off the clock.
But
But
we'll
I just
talk.
want to thank both of you for coming.
You're
And I want to
welcome.
thank all you guys for coming, because this is what the show's for. It's for the fans, by the fans. We love you. And we've got more stuff coming the whole weekend, so thank you very much.